You are listening to the Doug Hagmann Radio Show, weekdays 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And now the man behind the mic, a private investigator with over 30 years under his belt, Doug Hagmann.
Good morning, everyone. It's 6 a.m. on the West Coast of America, 9 a.m. here in the East. Welcome to Hagmann. It's the Doug Hagmann Investigative Hour for today, Tuesday, September 25th, 2018. Thanks for joining me this morning. We'll be taking an in-depth look at tomorrow's headlines today. Day 614, that's 614 of the Donald Trump presidency. It's day 77, I believe. Let me double check here. Yep, 77 of the Brett Kavanaugh nomination. 77 days ago, July 10th, 2018, Brett Kavanaugh was nominated for the Supreme Court by President Trump, selected for that position. Right now, and this is the biggest story going on, of course, you've got two women. You've got, obviously, Christine Ford and Deborah Ramirez coming out 30-plus year allegations of improprieties, sexual improprieties. You've got Kavanaugh fighting back, saying this is a political smear campaign. Obviously, it is. Here's the deal. Oh, throw in another one. Throw in yet an unnamed third person by that scummy porn lawyer, Avenatti, in my view, scummy porn lawyer, who is representing yet an unnamed person. Oh, did you hear about this? Oh, yeah. Appearing on all of the news shows yesterday. However, falling short of really delivering the goods, just saying, yeah, I've got somebody that I'll release her name in the next 48 hours. But we've got a lot of stuff against Kavanaugh. You'll hear about it in 48 hours. He appeared on Rachel Maddow last night and other platforms, including CNN, to say that, yes, he's representing someone, not naming that person, but additional allegations of sexual improprieties and misconduct. Right. I don't think so. And let me tell you this. I don't think... I got an email yesterday from an attorney who listens to this show, and he was pretty blunt. He said there's no way in hell that the accuser, that Christine Ford, is going to show up for the hearing. No way. There's no way that she could possibly testify. So I sent him an email back, and we went back and forth for, I don't know, about 3 or 4 email volleys. And finally, I asked him, I said, hey, could I give you a call? And he said, sure. So anyway, so we spoke last night, and he said, listen to me. I'm an attorney. I represent sexual victims of sexual assault. He said, I could see this from a mile away, and there's no way that she will testify. No way in hell. His exact words. Well, this would fit, obviously. This would fit with what others are saying. Rush Limbaugh is saying that she has no plans to testify. And it would also fit with the recent correspondence by Michael Bromwich, the attorney. He joined the legal team to represent the political interests of Christine Blasey Ford. Well, Bromwich sent a letter last night where he began to back away from his client's prior agreement to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee. How predictable is that? Of course. She's not going to testify. No. Just like the attorney said. This is nothing more than a political stunt by the left, by the Democratic Socialists, to, number one, ruin the reputation of one man, and that's Kavanaugh, to drag his family. This is a scorched earth approach, and we've seen this. I've talked about this before. And yesterday I mentioned, the second half of the program, I mentioned the groups behind this, at least the groups on the ground behind this. You've got 3 primary groups: the Women's March, you've got the Center for Popular Democracy Action, CPDA, Once again, Women's March, Center for Popular Democracy Action, and then Housing Works. All three are far-left socialist organizations. These are the organizations, based on my research, in my opinion, in my professional opinion, based on research, investigation, being there during the Kavanaugh, in D.C., during the Kavanaugh investigations, seeing with my own eyes what I saw, and the additional evidence brought forth through photographs, you can find them on the internet, of money being paid, and further identification. In my professional opinion, these three groups, Women's March, Center for Popular Democracy Action, and Housing Works, are behind the groundwork at the Capitol. Now, the fate of this, just to kind of give you a picture, the hundreds out of the 100 senators, U.S. senators here, the fate rests really in three senators, shall I say, or the three senators that on the Republican side that are expected to, well, they could very well throw up roadblocks. You've got Flake. You've got Jeff Flake from Arizona. He's retiring in January. You've got Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska. And then you've got Senator Susan Collins of Maine. There are three Republican senators. You'll get a look at these three, and by all accounts, they are the stumbling block to the Kavanaugh confirmation. Now, don't forget Collins from Maine. She's the senator who voted against the Clinton impeachment back in 1999. She voted against a proposal to repeal Obamacare last year. She voted against the appointments of Betsy DeVos and Scott Pruitt, the Department of Education and the EPA, respectively. Those three senators are, shall we say, wild cards in this. Now, where do we stand in the scheme of things right now? I had to ask that question, and in terms of how far down the road are we here? 77 days. Is that unusual? Well, the confirmation process is right now at 77 days is taking longer than the average. Now, a column by Matt Palumbo. I printed this out. I don't know where I found this. I apologize. I could probably go back and look, but over the last 40 years, it's taken an average of 67 days between a nomination and a confirmation vote for a Supreme Court selection. So, over the last 40 years, you take a look at Kagan, Sotomayor, Alito, Roberts, Breyer, Ginsburg, Clarence Thomas, David Souter, and so on. On average, 67 days. The longest delays have been for conservatives, obviously. Now, there's one exception to that, and that's Elena Kagan, but that aside. So Kavanaugh was nominated on July 10th, 77 days ago, already above the historic average. Now, you've got to look at what Republicans are doing on the Senate with respect to giving this Ford credibility, oxygen. She's got no. After speaking with the attorney last night, and I forgot I did not get his permission to air his name, but I've got to thank him very kindly. She's got absolutely no intention on showing up on Thursday. It's being set up right now. This was all a stall tactic because there's no way she could testify. No possible way she could testify. But by the way, if you're curious about this, Robert Bork, the days elapsed from nomination to final vote or withdrawal or whatever, Robert Bork takes the cake at 108 days. So just saying, Alito 82, Clarence Thomas was 99 days. I remember that confirmation process back in the 90s. That was just a horrendous, what they did to Clarence Thomas, they should be ashamed of themselves. But what's happening to Kavanaugh is even worse. The left has gone full scorched earth. Now, this Thursday, supposedly the day that this Ford is going to show up for a hearing, which she won't, is also the day of the now infamous, or soon-to-be infamous, meeting between Rod Rosenstein and Donald Trump, President Donald Trump. What's going to happen there? And I believe that President Trump is, look, I don't believe that he's going to do anything rash. I think he's going to ride this out with respect to Rod Rosenstein. I don't think we're going to see anything there on Thursday. In other words, I don't believe Rosenstein is going to tender his resignation. I think Rosenstein is in. He is dug his heels in. And I think Donald Trump as president is getting some good advice as to what to do. But Thursday is going to be a historic day. It's going to be really nothing in terms of any kind of, you won't see Christine Ford testify. Now, if I'm wrong, I apologize. But just based on the conversation I had with the attorney post-program last night, yeah, I don't think so. It's not gonna happen. It can't happen because she's got nothing. She has, there's nothing that she has. She doesn't remember the place. She doesn't remember the day. She doesn't even remember the year, basically. And then the second woman, this Ramirez person, remembers even less. And then Avenatti, the attorney, the porn, again, in my personal opinion and my professional opinion, the porn scum attorney Avenatti, representing somebody he won't identify, is saying he'll put this person's name out in 48 hours, offering nothing whatsoever. I believe that's just a complete maneuver for publicity. Because don't forget, Avenatti believes that he can run for president in 2020 or 2024. He's setting himself up politically. And if you noticed his theatrics last night, if you watched that, you could tell. So all of this is an attack against our country. If you just pull the lens back a little bit, what is happening? And then you see these mopes as well on Twitter. It's hard to even fathom that these mopes on Twitter, especially women. Now look, I am a husband. I am a father to daughters. If anything happened, and I don't have to say this, if anything happened to my wife or my daughters in this kind of, believe me, I would be outraged and I would not rest. But you've got to see this for what it is. And I will say one more thing. If the Senate does not vote, if Grassley does not bring this to a vote, the midterms will be lost. It's as simple as that. Rush Limbaugh said that yesterday, I believe. It's that important. We are now in a fight where there's no rules. A couple of years ago, and again, speaking from the heart, 5-6 years ago, I had written columns about this very environment in which we were living right now. The left, the progressive or the communist left, they're starting a civil war. They want a civil war in this country. It's divisiveness along every possible line. You've got social economic divides. You've got racial divides. They're exacerbating all of this. They want this country divided and then ultimately conquered. They want to burn this country to the ground. That's what's happening here. And you've got some Republicans or some conservatives going along with them. This is not about Republican and Democrat. We're far beyond that. You know that. There's one party. There's the ruling elite party. There's the globalist, whatever you want to call them, the party of the one world government, the elitist party, whatever. It doesn't matter. But there's them and then there's us. There's right and there's wrong. We need more people standing up for what is right. And this was all, when you look back at this, and you start putting the pieces together, pull the lens back a little bit and think about this. Isn't it interesting? The censorship issue, the banning issue, had really taken root, taken hold in the last couple of months. Who didn't see this coming? In retrospect, it's easy now to see that this is a very coordinated attack by the left. Hey, we are going to shut down the conservative voices. Have you noticed that the conservative voices now are being shut down more and more and more? Look at James Woods on Twitter. And Jack Dorsey is a punk. James Woods, in case you haven't heard, was banned on Twitter or disallowed from posting on Twitter because of a meme that he reposted. It was a picture of soy boys with smiles, and but the reason apparently given was it interfering with the election, the upcoming election. We're living in a bizarro world right now. But it was it's Jack Dorsey of Twitter. It's his decision. Meanwhile, he sits in front of Congress and lies his ass off and says that hey, there's no bias against conservatives. And excuse my language, I understand that this is a family show, but my goodness, when are the conservatives in this country going to wake up and understand what is happening here? How many times do you have to be played before you understand you are being played? We're being played for fools. And again, my apologies for my mouth. I'm sorry about that. But we're being played for fools. This is what is happening. And it's the socialist communist left that is attempting to bring this country down, and they're doing a fine job of it right now because we don't have the leaders in the Congress on Capitol Hill. We don't have the leaders in the chambers to stand up and say no. We're gonna vote right now, and here's how it's gonna be. I'm tired of this. We're just sick of this. You're ruining a man's reputation by not acting. We are in acquiescing. We are allowing this just to continue and get stronger, to embolden the socialist progressives. And by the way, did you see what happened to Ted Cruz yesterday? Now, I'm no fan of Ted Cruz. Believe me, I'm not. But he and his wife went to a restaurant, and he was approached by a group of individuals at this restaurant. He and his wife were. But we believe this. We believe the victims or the survivors or whatever the chant was. Now, it's being reported that this organic, spontaneous group got together and chased Ted Cruz and his wife out of this Washington, D.C. restaurant. Folks, it is not organic or spontaneous. They are organized. They are watching. They are following these people, Ted Cruz and others. They're following us. There is a network, a very solid network of organizations who are working together and harassing people like Ted Cruz, any conservative, and especially any Christian conservative. They didn't just happen on Ted Cruz and say, oh, him and his wife were at this restaurant? Okay, let me call my friends. That's not the way it happened. Yet that's the way the media is portraying this, and it's not like that. As I mentioned yesterday, we've infiltrated various groups, various leftist socialist groups, password-protected groups on the internet, through assumed names. That's what we do. We've done it with the Arabic language terrorist websites. We did it back in the early 2000s, and that was much more complicated because they were always moving from server to server, and the language barriers. Yeah. I mean that was a big deal. Now this, however, if the if the FBI was doing their job, and if we had an FBI law enforcement, federal law enforcement doing their job, the infiltration of these groups, look, call me. I'll give you the password information. But see, the problem is, we've got a group on the same side. It's the leadership of the FBI is so tainted, as well as the Department of Justice is so tainted against the constitutional republic and against you and I, they wouldn't do anything. Every conservative out there, especially Christian conservative, you should be very angry, driven to the point of action. Now, I'm not saying anything, I'm not advocating violence or anything like that. I'm talking about contacting your representative. Look, I had said before, it only takes 40 to 50 calls. That's all it takes. Because the metrics on this, if you call your representative, if 50 people call their representative, they figure, okay, one call represents maybe 1,000 or 10,000 people. I don't know the metrics, but it's so it really just takes 50 people to call, to write letters, to fax, to send emails, to do all of that, to get things moving. You can do it. We can enact change. But this is war. We are at a civil war right now. I'm calling it. Look, 5-6 years ago, I wrote about it. I said this was coming. It was Obama that was really his forces, the people, the followers of Obama, and under his direction were leading this charge. Remember the election of 2012? If they would have lost that, of course. This is what I wrote about 6 years ago, now 7 years ago, but whatever it is. This is what I was warning about. We are now at that point that I was warning about. We're at that point where Glenn Beck at that time read an entire column I wrote saying that it's going to get ugly. The only problem is I was about 6 years too early. But the information was accurate. Now I'm getting people contacting me saying, look, don't use my name. Here's what's taking place over here in terms of these groups who are actively going after conservatives. I'm going to tell you something. You're going to see some things at the Capitol building today, tomorrow, and especially on Thursday. Watch Thursday. They are planning some things this coming Thursday, Wednesday and Thursday. But these groups are planning massive disruptions in Washington, especially in the offices, in certain offices, on Thursday. I'm not going to give away any more than that. If I do, well, just watch it. It's coming. And it's going to be ugly. There are people who are going to be obviously arrested. You're talking about hundreds of people who are agreeing to be arrested. And then, of course, being bailed out. Now, you might say, well, this is not news to me. Of course, I knew this. There's something different about this now. Something had the tone, as I've been following. And this is something I've done, and it's not rocket science, okay? In terms of, there's no hacking involved or anything like that. All you do is create a persona and you infiltrate a group. It's simple as that. You create a fake Facebook account, you create a fake Twitter account, and a fake email. Simple as that. I mean, again, there's no invasion of privacy or anything like that. You just and then you infiltrate the group, and they send you updates, and you're part of the discussion. But I've noticed a change in the tone of the discussion. These people are out for blood now. So, and perhaps literally. This week in Washington will be a tremendously difficult week. And by the way, I want to say this. The chaos, it is not coming from the Donald Trump White House. There is no chaos in the White House, period. The chaos is coming from outside. I've heard people talk about, how chaotic it is in the White House. You're falling for the leftist, progressive, socialist, communist talking points. It would be akin, just like somebody saying, oh my goodness, there's chaos in the Hagmann Report studios. My goodness, there's infighting and there's backstabbing and this and that. No, there's not. Who gains from that? I've heard it said that there's chaos inside the White House. There's a lack of leadership. There's a questioning of Donald Trump's ability to lead. No, there is not. If you are hearing that, you are and repeating that, you're falling for BS talking points. This is what my goodness, it's not. Look, the reason I can say that is I was there. Now, look, I was there briefly. I'm not going to overstate my position. I'm not going to overstate what I was able to see or what I saw. But from what I did see, there's no chaos. There's no split or rift among the individuals working within the Donald Trump administration. This is just merely a communist leftist BS story to make you doubt the ability of President Trump to lead. These are planted stories. So don't fall for that. President Trump is doing an amazing job in many areas. Now, I'm disappointed in a few areas, but look, I think on total, I think he's doing an amazing job. But for goodness sakes, don't fall for the leftist communist talking points that there's chaos in the White House. I just wanted to bring that up because I've gotten several emails. No, there's not. Just understand that. And the people who are working for Donald Trump outside of, within his inner circle, man, it's a solid core of leadership, and I think that we've seen that through the foreign policy, through by the way, walking through the tariffs and trade aspects that we've seen over the last couple of days. That's pretty complicated stuff, pretty complex stuff, and I think that shows that the leadership has been my lady, the studio dog, she might have had a bad dream there. She just, I don't know whether you heard that. She just suddenly got up from her little bed and hit the desk, the studio recording desk. But anyway, the bottom line is this. Don't let the left say that, or paint the picture that the Donald Trump White House is in disarray. It's not. From the foreign policy to the domestic policy, everything, as far as I've been able to tell, and talking with people within the administration, it's a pretty well-oiled machine, and Donald Trump is on top of it. He's a great leader in terms of leading his group and his crew and the country. Now, there are outliers there within the FBI, the Department of Justice, of course, that want to see him fail. You've got the Obama holdovers, of course. Don't listen to them, obviously. And I do think that after the midterms, that Donald Trump will take care of him. Now, again, this is based on being present, talking with administration officials, and talking with people who are advising the administration. So there was a reference made to a meeting that we had, and a phone call came in, and this individual on the phone said, hey, I'm going to be meeting with President Trump on Monday or Tuesday and talking about the social networking issue, and, what are your thoughts? And having the ability, my goodness, having the ability to contribute to that conversation, as little as that was, and I'm not trying to overplay or overstate. I'm not at all. But what I'm saying to everyone is the conservative cause is being advanced. The evangelical cause is being advanced by President Donald Trump, and thank God it is. So everyone just take a chill pill, relax. It's not that bad, or it's not bad at all. And by the way, compared to other administrations, not even close. Now, I'm going to change directions here a little bit. Let's talk about Rod Rosenstein. There was an article, it was posted yesterday in the Conservative Treehouse, and you can go to the Conservative Treehouse website, you can read this, but by Sundance. And I read Sundance, and I agree with 90% of what he says and his analysis, but I respect him. But the title of the article is Rosenstein. And he writes that the media, they were going bananas yesterday with the proclamation of Rosenstein on the cusp of being fired and headed to the White House. Well, and I like this statement. Firing is not how leverage works. Okay, now, one more time, think of President Donald Trump. Think of his life. Read his books, his books that he's written, The Art of the Deal being one. Firing is not how leverage works. And in the Conservative Treehouse article, according to both President Trump via Twitter and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein through a statement that he made, President Trump and the Deputy Attorney General had a meeting last week to discuss the declassification directive. Remember the declassification that I spoke of yesterday. Now, within that meeting, it is almost certain, this according to CTH, Sundance, within that meeting, it is almost certain that part of the conversation circled around to Rosenstein being unable to fulfill his responsibilities at the Department of Justice if the substance of the information underneath the declassification directive was released. Now think about this for a second. What's he saying? What am I saying? You declassify and unredact the documents to be declassified. The FISA warrant that was signed by Rosenstein. How can he fulfill his responsibilities at Main Justice, if that happens? Now, writes Sundance, understanding the institutional corruption hidden by the Department of Justice and the FBI and FBI classification and redaction, it is predictable that Rosenstein would become the target for Trump media allies and supporters when the circumstances, evidence, and details surrounding the soft coup attempt are exposed. This is so critical for people to understand. Whether the Deputy Attorney General participated or facilitated the soft coup attempt directly, indirectly, or through willful blindness, looking the other way, there's no way that Rosenstein is able to stay on. Now, within the conversation last week, writes Sundance, it's almost certain that Rosenstein advanced his resignation if the declassification directive went forward and exposed the coup details. And I believe this to be a coup. I've talked about this before. Now, we recently saw President Trump delaying the declassification. And what did that do? Writes Sundance, two things. Number one, it gave the president leverage over Rod Rosenstein by extension, and by extension over Mueller. Now think about this. By the way, is this a man? Would this be a man without mental clarity? I don't think so, meaning Donald Trump. Or would this be a White House in disarray? I don't think so. Think about the beauty of this. So you've got President Trump, and everyone's saying declassify the information. Okay, wait a second. It's kind of like a nuclear bomb. You use the threat of having it sometimes is a bigger deterrent than using it. You can only use it one time. So think about this. the decision by President Trump not to declassify the information, it has given President Trump leverage over Rod Rosenstein and, by extension, Mueller. After all, the construct of the special counsel was built upon what? FISA fraud, the very documents signed by Rosenstein. It was built upon the Department of Justice and FBI intentional lies and FISA fraud. So, number two, that's the first. So it gave the president leverage over Rod Rosenstein and, by extension, Mueller. So the second thing, what it did, the decision places a very heavy burden upon the IG, the Inspector General, to be brutally honest with his FISA report. Because remember, what is coming next is the Inspector General's report on the FISA abuse. For those who don't know, FISA is an artifact, an offshoot, a consequence of the Church Committee hearings back in the mid-'70s. Remember the iconic image of the heart attack gun being held up and the committee looking at the abuses by our intelligence agencies against the people of the world. What happened? Well, to prevent that, the FISA court, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, was created. Now that's being abused. But this decision not to declassify places a really heavy burden on the IG to be completely forthcoming, to be very, to cover all of the bases with his FISA investigation. If the Inspector General is not brutally honest, then Donald Trump will pull the trigger, will release the declassified information, and show that the Inspector General is participating in a cover-up today. Look, this is a brilliant strategy. This is, by the way, this is basic strategy. This is not 4D chess. It's basic strategy. All of this leverage, this, according to Sundance's Conservatory House, and again, you can find this article online, it makes the position of Rod Rosenstein tenuous. Do you think? Now, put yourself in Rosenstein's position. You know you've got this IG report to show that will show the world what he had done as a Deputy Attorney General, specifically with the FISA abuses. Now, if you were him, how would you be anticipating that report? Would you be saying, oh, well, I just can't wait for it to come out? No, you'd be dreading this. You'd be sweating it. What Donald Trump has done through saying, okay, we'll hold off on the declassification. He is using this as leverage. Brilliant strategy. And I ask you again, would an administration in disarray have this clarity of thought? I don't think so. I'm going to quote, I'll quote Sundance Conservatory House right now here. Do you think Rosenstein likes the idea of sitting around waiting for the IG report to show the world how badly he botched the Department of Justice job and even facilitated their corrupt activity during his stewardship? Brilliant observation, in my view. Great job. He made a special counsel investigative appointment from a foundation of fraud. And all of this was collateral damage from the political efforts of the prior administration. Just think about this. Right, Sundance. Sucks to be the DAG. He did it to himself. I agree. When you look at what's going on here, when you look at this particular strategy of President Trump, because I had to ask myself, okay, wait a minute. There's a declassification. They're asking, Nunes is asking for the documents to be unredacted and declassified. And of course, you've got by the way, there's another component to this, and I'll toss this in right here now, is you've got the Five Eyes intelligence agencies, specifically the British, and the Australian intelligence agencies, saying, no, 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 no. It would hurt our sources and methods. Don't declassify. No. Well, what's going on there? What's going on there? The declassification would also show, and this will come out, the complicity of the British and the Australian, not the intelligence, but the political arm of the British and the Australians. Think Downer, think the people I've mentioned before, the people involved in this creation of this piece of garbage dossier. It would expose the British and Australians to the fact that they were working, this was not a product of intelligence, but a product of politics. This was a political hit job. This was not an intelligence hit job, although the two merged. But it would expose the UK, it would expose Australia in the form of Christopher Steele and Downer and the others. It would show that they were reporting to who? The State Department, the Hillary Clinton, well, I shouldn't say Hillary Clinton, but the Department of State, the John Kerry State Department managed under Obama. Now the puzzle pieces are beginning to fit, are they not? And now we have, okay, Donald Trump saying, okay, we're not going to declassify everything just yet. Why did he do that? Because many conservatives are saying, man, are you nuts? Oh, wait, let's look at this a little bit differently. You've got Rosenstein twisting in the wind right now. There's no reason right now for the White House to fire Rosenstein. His own conduct, this according to CTH, I'm quoting now, his own conduct has put himself into a virtual corner, and there's only one way out. So it's brutally obvious, with Donald Trump carrying all of this leverage over Rosenstein, the White House meeting yesterday, it wasn't about firing him. Here's the statement from the White House. The White House statement on inquiries about Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. This from Sarah Sanders. Here it is. At the request of Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, he and President Trump had an extended conversation to discuss the recent news stories. Of course, the news stories about Rosenstein saying, yeah, I'll wear a wire me up. And invoking the 25th Amendment. That I'm ad-libbing that. Okay, continuing with the statement here. Because the president is at the United Nations General Assembly and has a full schedule with leaders from around the world, they'll meet on Thursday when the president returns to Washington. He's in New York now. Okay, that's the statement from the White House. Continuing with Sundance's article, DAG Rod Rosenstein's career in the Department of Justice is over. He's a dead man walking. But not because of anything President Trump has done. Because Rosenstein himself put himself in that position. President Trump just smartly took the opportunity to hold the political leverage and narrow the path. There is no doubt that Rosenstein will resign. The question is when. What moment provides him the least disgraced exit? That's the question. Everything else in the media is these shiny trinkets. Oh, the chaff and countermeasures from the narrative engineers. Oh, that's what it is. Rod Rosenstein, September 21st, 2018. In response to the New York Times story, said, the New York Times story is inaccurate and factually incorrect. Now, think about those words. The New York Times story is inaccurate and factually incorrect. I will not further comment on a story based on anonymous sources who are obviously biased against the department and are advancing their own personal agenda. But let me be clear about this Rod Rosenstein, September 21st this year. Based on my personal dealings with the president, there is no basis to invoke the 25th Amendment. Now, notice the tense. Is it past tense? because they were talking about something that happened a year ago. Notice the present tense. Not past tense, not future tense, but present tense of Rod Rosenstein, of his statement. Based on my personal dealings with the president, there is no basis to invoke the 25th Amendment. Ladies and gentlemen, what you are hearing from Rod Rosenstein is a non-denial denial. He's not denying that he said this. He's not denying that he even said he'd wear a wire. There's no denial here. What he's saying is that the facts, the New York Times story, is inaccurate and factually incorrect. Which part, Rod? Based on my personal dealings with the president, there is no basis to invoke the 25th Amendment. Did you notice he didn't say, well, I did not say that? No. He's making reference, or should be making reference, to a previous, something that happened in the past, but he's using the present tense. Kind of like saying, I'm trying to think of let's say I was attracted to a female last year. I don't know. I'm just tossing this example out as if you need an example, right? And then you coming to me and saying, I'm not attracted to her today. You see the difference? We're talking about tense. Also, on September 21st, 2008, I never pursued or authorized recording the president, and any suggestion that I ever advocated for the removal of the president is absolutely false. All right, I never pursued or authorized recording the president. Okay? And any suggestion that I ever advocated for the removal of the president is absolutely false. Okay. Again, a non-denial denial. That's very carefully crafted. That's a very carefully crafted statement. I agree with Dan Bongino on this. So, now some people say, well, this was a red herring thrown out, or a deal thrown out to smoke out the Department of Justice, and I don't believe that. I believe it is what it is. I don't think there's any 4D chess or 3D chess going on here. I just simply believe that President Donald Trump is actually using the leverage provided to him and saying, wait a minute, boy, I've got this in my arsenal. I don't have to fire a shot. I don't have to use this nuke. Just threatening to use this is doing the job. And that's what I believe is happening today. It's a brilliant strategy. Before I forget, let me tell you this. I was watching so many news shows last night, throughout the night. I don't know if it was on MSNBC, CNN. I don't know where it was. But there was a pundit saying that what's taking place right now, considering the possibility of Rosenstein being fired by President Trump, is like watching a slow Saturday Night Massacre. Do you remember hearing that? I know I heard it. I just don't remember who said it. And of course, the slow Saturday Night Massacre is a reference to the Nixonian time. Remember that when he when he made the firings that Saturday night. Oh my goodness! But you recall what I'm saying, right? Or you remember the Saturday Night Massacre, and of course that reference last night by the political pundit. Well, some people are saying, look, this is exactly, in other words, President Trump is being set up to fire Rosenstein. This is exactly what they, meaning the deep state, want to happen. And they're setting up Donald Trump to fire him, to make it look like a Saturday Night Massacre, and then to turn around and to attempt to impeach him based on the firing of Rod Rosenstein. And that's what some people are saying. This is all a setup. It's all a trap. And it's to entrap President Donald Trump. I'm saying to you, look, I believe differently. I don't believe this to be the case. I think that the media is falling for this. The media is falling for that story, and even some of the conservatives are falling for this story. Well, stop it. Look what's happening here. President Trump is not stupid, and the people around him are not, for the most part, are not trying to take him down in his very, very inner circle. Schumer, the New York Times. This New York Times report must not be used as a pretext for the corrupt purpose of firing Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, referencing the story about the 25th Amendment and the wiretap, or the wearing a wire and such. In other words, people are saying, well, this was all a setup. This is a setup to goad President Donald Trump into firing Rosenstein. When you look at it the way I just described, and I agree with Conservative Treehouse Sundance on this, it's not that. It is not that. At this point, President Trump holds all of the cards. Mueller has turned up nothing. Rosenstein, for his part, knows that he's guilty as sin for signing the FISA warrant that is the subject of potential declassification. So, what we're looking at here, in my view, is a brilliant strategy to hold this over and to use this leverage. It's brilliant. Donald Trump holds all of the cards. Hopefully I explained that well to you. And I think if you want to go back and read the article by Sundance Conservative Treehouse, I think the article is briefly named Rosenstein, and then an ellipsis, 3 dots. But this is, in my view, this is what's taking place. So to recap, we have right now a coup taking place continuing against President Donald Trump and against the American people. Notice, and I started out talking about Kavanaugh, notice that the entirety, that the ultimate objective of the socialist left, the communist left, what is their objective? It is to forever keep the presidency of Donald Trump illegitimate. Because what Donald Trump has done, what he has done in the days since he's been in office, he's been in office 614 days today. What he has done in those 614 days is systematically dismantle the legacy of Barack Hussein Obama, who, by the way, is still in Washington, and that's no coincidence, because Barack Hussein Obama is leading the resistance. If you want to know, look, I mentioned Women's March. I mentioned the Center for Popular Democracy Action. I mentioned Housing Works. These are all groups, these socialist groups, in my professional opinion, working against the constitutional republic. But who is directing those groups? I submit to you, it is Barack Hussein Obama who is leading the resistance. And, of course, who's the money behind that? Well, there's the various PACs. You've got the Soros money, the usual suspects. The banning, the shadow banning, the social networks. Don't forget, remember I told you about that meeting between Obama and the members of the social networks back a number of years ago? Obama is tied into the shadow banning of conservatives and the banning of conservatives. This goes back a number of years. You are seeing this plan being played out before your very eyes. This did not happen 614 days ago. This happened a few thousand days ago. In fact, years ago, it began. This has been planned out. We are just seeing the results today of what has been planned and plotted and schemed for years. What we're watching today is the death throes of the communist left attempting to not just repel but to regain power by any means necessary. And if it means they've got to use groups and throw some people out there, have some people arrested, have some people bloodied up, they're pulling out all the stops. They have no moral brakes. They don't care. There are no rules anymore. At least not to the left. You know this. Have you noticed the palpable change? It's evident in the writings. It's evident in the actions. So what we have the complete and utter attempted destruction of a good man, of Kavanaugh. You've got this complete and utter attempted destruction of President Donald Trump, all to overturn our constitutional republic and make it the communist utopia that they're dreaming about. They know that this is their last chance. The Supreme Court nomination is everything to them. Meanwhile, the Mueller probe, which is producing nothing, it's just merely an extension of the coup that's taking place. And Mueller is not a good guy. He's a bad guy. And all of the people working for him are all 17, are all on the side of the socialists. They're all Hillary and Obama supporters. Donald Trump is facing an army of communist coup plotters, and so are we. Right now, we are at the moment. We're at a critical moment in time. I hope this makes sense to you. It's not about Brett Kavanaugh the man. It's not about Brett Kavanaugh the man. It's about something much bigger. It's about the progressive communist left, their last vestiges of any gains of power for the next generation on the Supreme Court. That's what it's about. They can't put their own person there, so they're going to burn the place down. It's that way with Donald Trump. Look at all the actions. Right now, this is a war. This is for all the marbles. I hope you can see that. This is for the whole enchilada. I mean, throw your whatever phrase you want in there. This is it. You're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem, but there are no spectators right now. And I hope this made sense to you. So the two big things to watch for this week: the Kavanaugh vote, how it goes. And they better bring, I'll tell you what, they better bring this to a vote now. These women, Ford's not going to testify. I'm convinced of that. Ramirez, nor is Ramirez. Avenetti's shooting blanks. They're stalling. They can't allow this nomination to go forward. So they're going to stop it by any means necessary. And oh, by the way, if they do call for a vote, watch for anarchy within the halls of Congress. They're already planning for that. This is going to be a very historic week. Buckle up. Make sure your seat backs and tray tables are in their full upright and locked position, because it's going to be a bouncy landing. Folks, if you like what you heard, please share this program on your social networking feeds. Glad to be back. Thanks for your patience, and tell everyone about the Doug Hagmann Radio Show. And join us tonight on the Hagmann Report, 7 to 10 Eastern. But I'm here every morning, 9 to 10 Eastern, Global Star Radio Network, BTR, HagmannReport.com. Also, hashtag DHRS, Doug Hagmann Radio Show, Twitter and Facebook. Hey, may God bless each and every one of you. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.
The Doug Hagmann Radio Show is brought to you by the Hagmann Report. Tune in to the Hagmann Report weekdays, 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. For more information, go to HagmannReport.com. That's HagmannReport.com.